It's past 10 o'clock, Debbie. Should we, yeah, we were expecting 4 other people to join virtually, but we're still working through all the technology on this, and as you probably know, Lori, parents, special needs parents kind of get pulled away from, a lot of things, and we just have to be flexible and right. You know that very well. For the past 30 years, you've been dealing with that, right? Anyways, welcome.
Thank you.
And you've had quite a drive here. So you're the only one that's here so far. So we're probably going to speak to you directly first. And, as people join, the 2 people that are on virtually, we will all take kind of rounds to do a round robin to introduce ourselves. So as you heard, I'm Natalie, and I'm a special needs parent, not for 30 years yet, for 12 years. My son is 12 years old. And, I got involved in Rising Heights in early 2020, and over time then stepped into a board role. And it's been a journey because, and I share this with as many people as I can meet, is that having a special needs parent kind of as one of the, main workers, leaders, whatever, means things happen in special needs time. I'm originally from India, so we also have Indian Standard Time, but I think special needs time is God's time, and it's, it's a very different time. Whether I was used to in the corporate world to be on Eastern Standard Time and first Indian Standard Time, then Eastern Standard Time. And now I'm learning about special needs time, God's time. So if you've not had a chance to learn a little bit about Rising Heights before you got here, we're a faith-based nonprofit. We still call ourselves a startup nonprofit because we're still very small and have the vision of creating kind of like a maximum inclusion community. So we understand that that may not be the perfect fit for every, client. And there are other options here, but our model is based on some maximum inclusion models out of state. So this kind of a model hasn't actually been set up here yet. So we're kind of pioneering in that respect as far as housing and what's called co-housing, where individuals with intellectual disabilities will have the opportunity to live as neighbors in the same community with neurodiverse individuals that are not always their family members. So I believe Hudson may have the model where family members can live with the person if they want, or they don't. Okay.
Not the community that I was talking about, Hudson community living. Nope, that is strictly for people with developmental disabilities.
And she is connected to them now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So in any case, model, we all have kids that are at different stages in their ability to integrate, and this model will allow for moderate to low needs individuals, because there is a component of integration. But we want to build a community because their ability can change anytime during their lifetime. So we want it to be a live, work, play plus care community. And because that was, when we were founded, there were about 30 families that were interested in creating a housing community in this area. And it was a wide spectrum of abilities of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in that group. And so, most of them were concerned about how are you going to handle the care, right? And so that's how we came up with this model, where we will, and there are some laws, you may be aware of those, that impede a single organization doing the care piece and the housing piece. And there are some good reasons behind it. So our model is to create a program, a robust training program that has much more value than what's available by the DODD or at Tri-C for home health aides, or, care.com type of profiles or Sitter City profiles, a robust training curriculum so that these individuals that are trained through it can look at this as a career and a longer term career. And we don't have the revolving door that comes from burnout, from low wages, from lack of advancement, from all of those reasons. So, and then, the other piece of this is we've partnered with the Hope Center, and you'll learn more about the Hope Center from Josh. It is, again, a faith-based organization that serves refugees in the area. And together, we are also pioneering this type of a training. It's not available anywhere in the country. We're the first to launch it. And there are many unique features to it. Working with the refugee population is one of them. And so that's kind of just a little bit of a background about myself. I should give a chance to everybody else to introduce themselves a little more formally, and then we can go into the PowerPoint presentation.
With not being on there now?
No, we're here.
Okay, good. Yes, my name is Debbie McLean, and I do not have a special needs child, but I have been involved with Rising Heights since 2019, and I have a passion for the special needs population.
Justin and Josh. Any one of you?
My name is Justin Angelson. I've been involved with Rising Heights for a couple of years now, I guess, right? It's about 2 years. It's crazy that it's gone that fast. It really trips me out how fast time passes. But I'm the technology person. So I am a, software developer, solutions engineer by trade. And, I think there's no limit to human potential. And, this project and this organization is something that spoke to me when Natalia introduced it to me and asked if I wanted to help, build a website. And that's how I get started. So I try to figure out how we can use all of this crazy advanced technology to make work better, make people's lives better, and to help advance the mission. So that's a little bit about me. So.
And he's a parent of a child that has an IEP. So,
Okay.
yes, neurodiverse child.
Oh, without question. Yeah.
And my name is Josh Contour. My day job, I'm a physical therapist for university hospitals, but I've been working and volunteering at the Hope Center, teaching a variety of classes since 2020. So this was just a perfect match for me, where it was healthcare and an immigrant and refugee population, trying to marry the two of those things. And my main job, or my main role in this project, is I facilitate the in-person classes.
Thank you. Justin, can you broadcast the PowerPoint presentation? I would appreciate if you could tackle that.
Yeah, give me just a moment. It's attached to this meeting, correct?
It is attached to the meeting, the PowerPoint, but I was hoping that we could, this is funny. I don't know why it's not. We might have to, since it's just Lori, are you going to be okay with looking at it from here, perhaps?
Of course, yeah. It doesn't look
Okay.
good either way.
We were hoping that it would broadcast on here, but it got disconnected.
Do you want me to get the tech person again or not?
Well, let him get started first with the PowerPoint. And so the reason why we decided to partner with a refugee organization specifically was because I have a personal story. My mom was a refugee, and over her lifetime, she, was able to accomplish a lot in her adopted country, and she lived in the United States. She got a PhD from the University of Wisconsin, went back, had a career, but most importantly, during her career in India as a faculty of people that were postgraduates, they already had PhDs themselves. She took care of 5 family members that had intense needs. And she did that, and she had committed her entire life to it, so over a period of, I believe, 30 years, she did that. And when I think of her, I got the sense from, knowing her as a mom, but also as a professional and someone that cared so much about providing that kind of care. And for some family members, it was changing diapers and everything. That it was her early experiences that shaped what her values were, her determination, her resilience, and her empathy, her deep empathy for people. And, even though being a refugee was extremely hard, her family was on the streets for several months in India. It was extremely difficult. She came out of it with a sort of determination and a zest for life that I don't have it, So we felt that refugees, even though they're walking the journey of their own healing and finding their roots again or placing their roots down again, they have so much to offer, and they're often underestimated, regardless of where you are in the world, not just in the United States, even in India or any of the other countries where they live as refugees. And we identified the Hope Center because of that passion that they bring and the understanding and the empathy that everybody that serves in that organization brings to the refugees. So we were able to partner with them, and we decided that this would be an opportunity, because it takes a lot, to serve our kids. And having that character trait match up with the needs of the individual and fill a very big need in our community was an opportunity that we wanted to explore.
And a win-win.
Yeah, a sort of a win-win in
brilliant.
every respect, yes. And then we had this fabulous team. We have Justin, Debbie. There have been a few other parents that have been in Hannah, parents that have the PT, the physical therapist. I mean, beyond what he's doing to serve the community of refugees, his own professional background has been invaluable. And now he's been teaching these classes, and you should see the reviews that Josh gets from the refugees. I mean, he's just fantastic. So we all worked on this for about 1.5 years to create a curriculum that is really robust. And we'd like for you to take a look at all the different pieces of it.
Switch places because I want you on the video on that.
We can move on. We've done the introductions. And Justin, is this going to come on the recording? Is this going to be is it part of the recording? Just to double check. I can't hear you. Did I turn you off? You can go back one bit.
It looks like
You can go back one slide, Justin. We could hear a little bit about Lori's experience as well. Was that one slide over, or was that this one? Yeah, so this is basically, it's taking time to load up. All right, so this was one of the, so you started talking about it naturally with Debbie, right, when you arrived, but we just for Justin's and Josh's benefit, and I was kind of listening in, if you'd like to share a little bit about, how has it been for you over these past 30 years in caregiving, and, what are some of the challenges you face today, and what do you expect to
And what
face
you're
in the
looking for, because she
Yes.
can help with us.
Yes,
for her.
yes, yes.
Okay, sure. So I have a 30-year-old son, Nate, who was born, he has a rare genetic disorder. So he essentially had a brain injury shortly after birth from high blood ammonia. He has a urea cycle disorder, which is I could do a whole another day on that, but we'll skip that. Anyway, so between being medically fragile and having special needs, it's been a journey. I stopped working when he was 2, just because things were so complicated. And as not fitting into, like, he doesn't have autism, he doesn't have Down syndrome, we fell through a lot of cracks. I didn't even know for a couple of years about early intervention or all that kind of stuff. Nobody gave us any of that information. And it's kind of been like that ever since, where you don't know what you don't know. And so I started when he was very young. I got pretty active advocating, first of all, for newborn screening, because his disease is one that could be picked up on the newborn screens, but 30 years ago, they weren't as robust as they are now. And from there, it kind of developed into talking at universities in the area about kids with medical issues as well as special needs and different things. And it just kind of snowballed from there. Haven't used a lot of caregiving, because I was lucky enough to be able to stay home and be his primary caregiver. And so I have been, but we have been working on getting him out of the house. Nate is 30 now. He is extremely social, extremely active. He's in a book club, Special Olympics, a basketball team, a fellowship thing at our church, a bunch of stuff. And really is not that happy just being home with my husband and I anymore. It's kind of quiet. We have a daughter who's been gone for 6 years. And anyway, so before COVID, we were really actively looking to get him out. And then COVID hit, and everything just kind of crashed and burned, everything he was involved with. And then it's kind of been a slow creep back. And as things were coming back, a family in our community decided they wanted to create a small pocket community in Hudson to house people with developmental disabilities. And very quickly, that dream became a reality. The community is built. It will house 32 people with special needs. They have a director, an assistant director, and also 4 RAs is what we're calling them, resident assistants, kind of that live in the neighborhood, who their whole goal is to just be kind of a safety net, another layer person with keeping eyes on everybody, involved with everybody. But as you spoke to, it's complicated. We can't provide care in the community, and I'm on the board for community living.
I see.
So, and it was very much a learn as we go process, and especially I'll say the gentleman that started it, as it works out in a lot of families, the moms are much more involved with the school system, the county board, and all those kind of things. So it's been very much learning on the fly, but that became an early, very obvious thing, is that we couldn't provide any kind of caregiving. And the residents in the community run the gamut. There are people that drive and go out to work every day and come back, and they just need a little bit of help here and there, all the way to people that will need caregivers always, always with them. My son's kind of—
Is it all ages too, or no? It's just adults?
I think, I'm embarrassed to say, I'm pretty sure it's 22 and over is what it's set at. And so it's no one under, I'll say for sure, not under 20 in there. And so it's still very much a learning process. We have 8 residents that have currently moved in. It's going pretty well. The assistant director, the director, and then 2 RAs are in there right now, and a chef. So, and it's just really getting off the ground and running. But my biggest concern has been and still is staffing with caregivers. Because my son, he can be alone 3 or 4 hours, but he will mostly need caregivers. And he also has some medical needs. So it's very important that someone is there that's specifically attuned to what he needs. It's not hard, but someone needs to understand and make sure it all happens. Also, he's very social. So I want caregivers that will take him to his activities. And he's just a funny, engaging guy. So, I'm I'm really looking for people that will be engaged with
Yeah.
him and enjoy him and want to be there.
Yes.
You know. So,
Thank you for sharing. That's a pretty comprehensive,
And that helps a lot. To know
yeah.
exactly where you're looking, what you're looking for. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, I think, Justin, if you move to the next slide, you will see some of the statistics that we've shared here. You know, you are living those statistics while running this organization or serving on the board. Especially in 2020, even, you know, we all felt like the pandemic was, you know, a trigger, but it's a caregiver crisis, or the caregiver shortage is an endemic issue. It's not just the pandemic that's led to this. And so, you know, here we see that as of 2023, caregiver turnover reached 76%. And a lot of it has to do with wages. And, you know, from the Board of DD and at the state level, they've made changes to that. But like speaking in my case, for example, you know, my son has a waiver. He's a level 1 waiver. And he's complex. He's very complex. He's social. He's got a great sense of humor. He loves people. He loves life. He's come very far with the, you know, mountains he has to climb every day. But at the same time, he has a physical disability. He has epilepsy. He has ADHD. Those are all co-occurring disorders with his CP. And, you know, even with the extra pay, we are finding people saying, no, we do not want to get involved. And what I've seen is, you experienced this, and yes, you were right, you know, that the families that have the ability to have one parent stay home and be committed to that type of caregiving, it works out for them in the younger years, but often it also leads to families being separated. It also, you know, the divorce rate amongst families that are rearing special needs kids, even if there are neurotypical kids in the household. Actually, that's you know, adds another ringer to it. The divorce rate is extremely high. So in our community, we wanted to make sure that we were creating a training program that's preparing caregivers to serve all ages, not just the seniors, not just the ones that are staying home most of the time, which seems to be, you know, how most caregivers want. Like if there's an individual that requires physical support and medical support and behavioral support, you're not going to find them here. But that's what we're trying to build up. Now, this is a pilot program. And, you know, as I shared, we're trying to create something that it's based on this model called triadic care, where it's a team-based model. And I mean, ultimately, all caregiving is team-based. You know, my mom was kind of a rarity in that respect, but yet she too went and, you know, tried to build community understanding and at the same time lean on the community as well. But again, you know, as a nation, those supports weren't available, those resources weren't available. And so she was running it alone most of the time. And that's rare, you know, so we do have to recognize that regardless of what training you provide, regardless of what resources you provide in terms of pay and advancement and all of that, you can't take away that team, you know, team model, the team care model. And then we felt that we could also incorporate AI and robotics. Now, you know, that's a very ambitious goal, but it's moving along much faster than, you know, most of us are even ready to accept, right? So we've incorporated those elements, and we feel that this model, which will help with the burnout, you know, incorporating AI to create custom care plans using all the data that's been collected on the child so far from birth to wherever they are at, and, you know, prioritizing that, giving them a better sense of empowerment, the caregivers, empowering them, you know, and then when the robotic support is ready, pulling that into that care team as well. That's our vision. for this. And the first step was, working with the refugees and bringing them in where it's a win-win for both. But we feel that it'll reduce caregiver burnout. It'll help people see this as not just a stepping stone. RA students, it's great experience. It helps me on my resume. I'm moving on. And the adverse impact of this constant cycle of caregiving is felt by the individual and the families. So if we can somehow narrow, or extend the time frame that people are going to be serving an individual, we reduce some of those behaviors that come out of it, the stress that comes out of it and all of that. So again, we're engaging technology to help us with that matching process, with the scheduling process. So those are some elements that we feel distinguish our program. And then, of course, there's the faith component. We are open to all faiths, and we are looking at grounding it in a community where the individual has the ability to actively practice their faith and not feel judged about practicing their faith. My son has grown up in two faiths, in the Hindu faith and the Catholic faith. And that kind of thing, is a struggle for him. Everywhere he goes, it's a struggle for him. When he is in India, it's a struggle for him there. When he's here, it's a struggle for him here. So it's just, and yet he receives so much from it. And so those are some of the components that we've built into this that we hope that is going to provide the fundamental structure in the training. And of course, because it's refugees and some of us are bilingual, we have engaged technology. We've got, right now, we're working with, and you'll learn more about it from Josh, we're working with a group that comes from 7 different countries. And so the aim was, and we've accomplished, I would say we're about 25 or 50% there. Justin can tell us a little more about it, where we're making this a multilingual training program. So moving on, Justin, and ongoing mentoring and coaching is another piece of this, where with Josh facilitating the training rather than how DODD has it, is most of it is online.
Yeah.
And, often I've had this for the past 5 years that I've been working with DODD, people claim they've gone through the certification. People claim they understand it, but when they get to the home of the person, they're not able to engage those tools. So the coaching and the mentoring is really critical. And Josh has been providing that to this group, this cohort that we're training right now. The next piece, what we're here for, is another mentoring and coaching component that we want to put in place as well.
With the host families.
Okay.
So here's a quick video. Can you play that, Justin? And it's all like, for us, Justin, FYI, it's I don't know if you can enlarge the screen or.
I did go on your website. And
Oh, you've watched it? Okay, so we can
Go
move on then.
Go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say she doesn't need that part. Good for you.
And about it being the first of its kind in the nation, we've talked to a few other people. In fact, we're using a lot of publicly, freely available resources in our training curriculum right now. So we've been talking to other organizations out of state. And when we've mentioned this to them, they're like, oh yeah, we never thought about bringing these two groups together. This is unique, and, may the force be with you, and go use our materials. It's
So
fine.
nice.
Yeah, it's fine. And as we progress, the intention is that we create a program that can be opened up to anyone that wants to go through this particular extra layer of training. And, perhaps we could partner with some organizations in the area. Our intention was that this becomes a revenue generation tool for Rising Heights,
community,
for
sure.
our community. But, we're open to taking it to market at some point, and then getting some licenses sold, where we could, and we're creating it so that it's scalable and replicable. And so it really can go international. I'm talking to a similar community in India that said, well, we would be interested because India is dealing with refugees too. And we would be interested in something like that.
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Is your county board involved with? what
Not
you're doing?
yet, not yet. And we're hoping that Hannah can help us. We just kind of introduced it to them through this session.
But when they
And-
go through your training, they're certified then to be paid through Medicaid?
Well, they are going to go through the DODD training.
Okay.
They have
well.
the
They have to.
ability to go through the DODD training as well,
Okay.
which is again, public and freely available, right? So, and we're serving all the communities in the process. So, and not all of them may be able to complete that training. We just have to see how it goes. It's been 3-4 weeks now, 3 weeks, right? April 15th, we launched it.
Okay.
And technically, the whole program will end in July.
The whole training program?
The whole training
Yeah.
program will end in July.
And that will include the clinicals at the host families in the month of July.
How many people are you training right now?
11.
Oh, okay.
And there are more in the wings. So
Yeah, wait
Josh
list.
Josh
Wait
can
list.
tell you. So Josh, I've pretty much covered this. Justin, I've covered the components of this slide. We could just kind of move on to, are you getting a sense of the triadic care model? You've got the individual, the client, and then the family member and the care team. It's actually all of it, basically. And it's based on a care model that's used in hospitals for intensive care individuals. So they usually have that triad of caregiving or medical care. And we thought we'd pull that into our training structure, the fundamental structure of how we're setting up our program. Josh?
Great. Yes. So again, my name's Josh. I've had the opportunity to be facilitating the classes for the past 3 weeks. And just to tell you a little bit about the group that we have 11 students right now. Of the 11 students, 10 of them either have healthcare experience in their home country or caregiving experience. There are 2 that have children with special needs of their own. There's another who served as a caregiver for an elderly in-law for like a number of years after they had a stroke. So kind of like I'm sure you're aware, it's like whether you personally have someone, it's very likely that you know someone who has intellectual or developmental disabilities, and how that can impact your life and your family. Probably my favorite story in terms of the class is we have 2 women who are from Afghanistan who worked at the same children's hospital. So one of them was in OBGYN, the other one was a nurse in the pediatric ICU. And neither of them knew that they were coming to Cleveland or Ohio. So they showed up at the class and they're like, wait a minute, I know you. But it's been really cool because there's certain kinds of jobs or educational things that will translate to the States. Healthcare is not one of them just because of the amount of regulation and the legality and certifications needed. So it's been really cool to see like those people who are pharmacists or nurses or doctors when you're asking like, hey, in terms of qualification, like this feels like you meet the bar and exceed the bar by quite a bit. But the common response is just, if I have the opportunity to do something in healthcare or working with people or caring for people, even if it's small, I still want to do that. So we have people who, again, have been physicians for a long, long time who are saying, yeah, I would love to be able to help someone get dressed in the morning and help someone figure out an IEP and all those things. So it's that part has been pretty humbling in terms of just the mindset that the students are approaching with. On the refugee side, it is a very common response that people come hoping to make a better life for their kids or for the future or somewhere down the road. So it's been really exciting to be able to offer the opportunity to people in their current life and say, hey, no, like there still is opportunity for you. And there are still things that you can do that you're passionate about, that you've enjoyed doing in the past, that you're trained for, that you've spent a lot of time learning. And they're just soaking it up. This past week, we had our very first outside training. The American Red Cross came in and did CPR, AED, first aid, and basic life support training. So it was a really good checkpoint where I think it was good for the class too, where they could see someone who wasn't me saying, you guys are doing so good. Like you guys have the material down. And they crushed it. They did great. The instructor who came in was very impressed with everyone. They were really, really engaged. And it was very much like a proud parent moment for me. So it's been, yeah, I've been surprised at the variety of people who've showed up. Like Natalia had said, it's 7 different countries. We have 10 women, 1 man. Variety of different languages, variety of different religious backgrounds, a lot of experience with this population and this type of work. But overall, it's been a blast. It's been a blast to get through and finally get started.
Josh, I have a question for you. Lori is actually from Hudson, and a question, if she were to be interested in being a host family, would somebody travel that distance?
Yeah, I think so. We had people fill out on their initial, I don't know if application is the right word, but just kind of information gathering, how far that they were willing to drive or travel. And there were a number of people who said 45 minutes to an hour. So I don't think that would be an issue, especially I might have to grab you at another time to talk about this community, because there are some interesting parts of that in terms of being like, hey, if we could send multiple people out there, then you kind of have that support built in and be able to work and collaborate together as caregivers. But that's a whole different thing. So yes, I do think everyone in the class drives. Everyone in the class has access to a car. And then there were a number of people who had said that they were willing to drive.
They have legal status to work and live here. Yeah.
Say that again?
Legal status also?
Everyone has legal status.
There's a citizen also.
Over half of the class are actual citizens. So they've lived in the United States for 5 years or more, went through the whole citizenship process, and they're US citizens. The rest are a variety of visa holders, or they have refugee status. Primarily the ones who have refugee status are from Afghanistan. I don't know how familiar you are, but there was a regime change in like 2021, 2022. So a lot of people had to leave the country due to threat for their personal safety there. So there's a number who are under that status, all legal. And everyone has either a GED in the United States or the equivalent of that. So it gives a baseline level of English, which has been very helpful.
Can you, Josh, talk a little bit about each topic of the curriculum, and maybe also how you handle the facilitation? Because I feel like that is what also engages the learning around the cultural differences, and how they can navigate the cultural differences.
Sure. So we have 8 modules. We're just finishing out the 8th one. The first module is just about, which we've completed, is just about self-reflection on what is your learning style. Is this actually a good fit before we go through the whole class? Is this type of work something that matches your personality or the things that you like to do? And then just some introductory material in terms of, okay, this is what IDD means. This is what the different classifications are, to your point, Lori, where sometimes people don't fit neatly in autism spectrum disorder or other learning disabilities. So going through the introductory material is that first module. The second module that we just finished up was the CPR, first aid, AED training. And then from there, it's a variety of like biopsychosocial components. So talking about how your cultural differences might impact your work, talking about specific activity of daily living skills that you'll need to know. And we're training a lot of those, even though, as I'm sure you're aware, family to family, that can vary a ton. Sometimes you may be transferring people in and out of a wheelchair, or they need a lot of mobility assistance. Sometimes not at all. But we have to teach all of it just in case, because we don't necessarily know beforehand what you're going to walk into. Then we have the module that is the Ohio DODD training, and that's on their website. They get their certificate afterward, all of that stuff. Similarly to the American Red Cross module, it's been really helpful to take extra time to work through and make sure that nothing is getting lost in translation, and just making sure people who aren't as familiar with it have extra opportunities to be comfortable with the techniques and the verbiage and the process. Like a quick example is some of the countries people are coming from don't have like an emergency services equivalent. So when we talk about, for an emergency check, make sure it's safe, call 911. They're like, what? What is 911, or what does that mean? There's someone that you... So being able to take extra time to go through those alongside of people while they're watching the videos online or while they're working through has been good. I think that was a good decision. And then as we go through the actual skills training, and that covers everything from, like I had said, ADLs to transfers to different kinds of assistive devices to de-escalation techniques. Once we get through that, we have a clinical component, and we finish up with a like a career readiness.
advisor.
Yeah,
Career
career
advising.
advisory piece. So the goal is make us aware of how healthcare and how culture is going to be different. Make us aware of just personally how we fit into that as individuals. Train the skills, reinforce the skills again. Practice in a controlled environment with clinicals, with families that actually have kids or family members with IDDs. And then from there, do some career readiness stuff to make sure that everyone is set. And I have my daughter here saying hi. Do you want to say hi? Oh, you're feeling shy. I'm having a little bit of a meeting. Okay. So we wanted to make sure that as we go through the whole program, that we're equipping people as well as we can for the whole process, where you know the skills, you feel comfortable, and you know how to navigate the work environment side of it. And so far I've been pleasantly surprised at how well the class has adapted to the use of technology and how engaged, and like no one misses any classes and all of those types of things. So it's been very good.
If I may add, Josh, these are, while a lot of the content is online, the classes are actually being held at the Hope Center, which is just on the far west side. And I think it's an old church that's been reclaimed, right?
Yep.
And Josh, has like a little review session at the end of each module. Each module has testing at the end, and they can only progress if they've met some thresholds in each module. And then what we've done is we've worked with professional instructional designers and cultural integration, acculturation training and knowledge that's available, and integrated that into each of those modules. So, and then going back to the clinical piece, that is, why we are holding these information sessions is we're trying to recruit families. We have some, a small group of families that we started with. And because this whole process has been so long also, some of those families have placed their kids in group homes, but they know that even those group homes are going through the challenges of caregiving. But we are not, our intention is that, and Debbie will talk a little more about care host families. Our intention is that this group get some hand holding while they are experiencing a clinical, learning experience. So shall we move to the next one? And I believe that's Debbie's. Is it? What is the next slide? You've already done this, right?
Yeah, I think this just goes through mainly the material that's covered in the course.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think here is where host families are essential. So Debbie will take that piece.
Sure. And this is the part I think that you're most interested in. We are looking for host families that say yes, in the month of July for 2 to 3 weeks. We will host one of the trainees that is trying to learn more to come into the family. Again, it all depends on scheduling. Some of these adults and kids have places they're going, schedules. So we will match the caregivers with the family schedule and also with what the caregiver can do. But we're hoping about 10 to 15 hours a week. Obviously, one of the parents will be there to help with the mentoring and support of the person, but it's not like they will have to be in the room at all times, but they're not going to leave the house while this person is there. It's free, so no one pays anything to have it happen. One of the unique things that I'm most excited about is we have taken a professional that has taken all the IEPs, ISPs, ERTs, whatever, put that into, again, we had said we're using AI heavily, have used that in AI, and they have come up with all the different strategies that would work with this individual. Then we took some of our sample parents that were doing this. We had them look at what the AI, and all the information personal was redacted. So no one has any information on who this child is. The parents then looked to see what the AI came up with and said, yes, this is spot on. Let's add this, let's delete that. So they made it a very, very individualized, personalized fit for their child. And then at the time that these caregivers will come in, they will also be looking to see where their skills match in the scheduling of the family and when they can come, and also possibly on from what the AI came up with on strategies to work with the child. So that is very, very different than anything that's out there. And we're hoping that will be a win-win for the family and a win-win for the caregiver and provide the burnout.
It'd almost be worth it just to get the plan. So you're going to do a plan for each family that hosts one of the trainees.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of brilliant.
And the host family that obviously agrees to do this will then give us their ISP, their things that we can then put in. We have them for some families already, but yes, then that will be a more individualized whatever. And we also will have, the insurance is covered under homeowners insurance of, if the person has homeowners insurance. We will have a waiver form for the parents to sign as well, just covering legal things to the point that it's not going to be huge, but it's just going to cover so that we're smart with everybody as well. So do you have questions on?
It all sounds great. So the waiver, you're saying like the families would sign a waiver saying, I won't leave during this period, or
Well, more.
Because I would think everybody would have homeowners insurance. Right?
Yeah, I think it's more to if the child could be injured for something, if the caregiver was injured, that just no one's, we're just covering legal liability.
Because we're a small nonprofit.
Yeah, I get it.
Right. So, and these are refugees, I mean, some have lived here long enough, but it's not like we all have deep pockets that we can just take any type of risk, and we are trying to mitigate the risk by making sure that there's matching, but there are behaviors involved also.
And depending on the
And-
child.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
There you go.
yeah, I.
Yeah, your son
understand.
doesn't sound like he would have to be worried about that piece.
He, he does, and he's pretty easy,
Yeah.
but I certainly understand what you're talking about. And then is the plan that these 11 trainees, once they complete this
Yes, I was
piece,
about to add.
are they ready to go into employment
Placement.
then?
Yeah.
They would be.
And that would be up to the family. The family gets the first choice.
choice. If they-
And
Okay,
Debbie mentioned one-on-one, like one trainee placed in one home, but really my goal was that we have at least 2 be trained with one client, if not 3, because you and I know that, things come in the way, and having a backup already is kind of oriented to the individual oriented to the backup person, helps. So ideally the trainees get a sense that, it's going to be a team. And if something life happens, we can easily transition to the next person. And then we are incorporating a wellness, component in our clinical experience, especially. But all along, checks for these people to make sure that they are taking care of themselves.
Sure.
And so having the backup helps for them to understand that right from the get-go, I have to be aware and mindful that taking care of myself is just as important as, and that's what allows for quality care for the individual.
Well, and the other point too is if you have more than one in your home, obviously your son is going to relate to different personalities like we all do. So is there one caregiver that's
Correct.
a better personality and
Sure.
that would fit? And if you, the best scenario is if you would find someone that you really thought connected that would want to then move into a role of employment.
yeah, it
So-
is. And honestly, from my perspective, the whole making sure the best fit personality wise, that's almost like on the luxury end of things
Mhm.
right now, because
I
it's
know.
so hard to get caregivers.
You're right.
And so are you seeing, right now, there's basically 2 models we're working with, either an agency where I come to you and I say, okay, my son needs caregiving all the time, except when he's at work or a day program. So like 8 hours, Monday to Friday or whatever, that he doesn't need it. And then you cover everything. Or are these people, they're each going to be independent providers?
There are going to be, we cannot be an agency because we
Okay.
are still committed to our
Because legally
housing
you could.
piece. Yeah,
Right.
we're still committed to our housing piece, so we can't have those 2. We cannot be a provider. Unfortunately, the laws are set up that way.
Yeah, so I'm a little
So-
confused. So the housing group is different or not different from the group that's doing.
Correct. At
You're
this
doing
point
the
in time,
training.
they're 2 different, they're both
Right.
part of the same entity.
But we're
Okay.
Down the
doing
road, we
training.
may, yeah.
We're not
Right.
care providers. We're doing the training. And then, very good question you asked, then these people that have graduated, in the last segment that they're doing the career opportunities, they will specifically help them know they can work privately for private pay for someone. They can work for someone that has a waiver, that the waiver pays them. They can work for an agency and then
Right.
still provide care. So giving
So
them.
those are the career pathways that we're going
Yeah.
to be
Okay,
talking
so
to them
you're just-
about. Yeah.
So they can be
Yeah.
employed with the person that they are through different means, and they'll understand, in fairness to the refugees, okay, if I do the private, then I need this insurance. If I do this and the agency, if I do the agency, they don't pay me as much maybe as the private. They're going to get all of the different logistics so that they can make.
You're
the
going to help
decisions.
them.
We are
look at
going
all
to help
those
them.
options
We're going to
because-
educate them on that.
And my dream is that hopefully some of them start their own agencies and, they become
Right.
entrepreneurs here. And because, that's what America is built on.
So we're
right?
keeping it very
So-
open for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
but we're advising them on how to take those steps and not, just grope in the dark and make mistakes and
Mhm.
learn the hard way and all of that, that was the goal with the career advising piece.
Yeah, it's okay. It's tricky. So we tried to offer to pay people to go through the training, and basically we tried to get a group of people together, get them to do the county board training, get certified, and we offered to cover whatever fees
Yeah.
and all that.
Mhm.
Out of 20, did a dinner, did a presentation, got 25 people to actually in 2 years actually followed through. So
2 out of the 25.
actually got certified. It just,
It's so
What were their
disappointing.
profiles like?
Yes.
Were they coming from?
all over the place. People that were pretty, I mean,
Yeah.
we spent time interviewing and talking with people.
Yeah.
We tried to really get people that were interested, knew what they were getting into, you know,
So what
did
was,
well.
did you
in
get down to the bottom of what caused the attrition?
A lot of people really got hung up on how hard it was
It
doing the
is.
county board
Yeah.
training.
Oh.
And we've had families, I mean, one family in particular that I'm close with decided to go for 6 years. They've tried using the agency model
Yes.
in their home. They bought a home for their son and then they have 2 other people living in it. And it has been, I mean, it's been a nightmare of people that are providing care in this home. I could
Uh-huh.
go on and on with that. But anyway, they decided, okay, we're totally scrapping that. We're going to completely go independent providers. Last summer, they spent the entire summer. That was they're both retired now, but they were big professionals.
Yeah.
And they spent the whole summer. They went through the training themselves. They reached out. They tried to help people go through it. And it's still a nightmare. They're,
I'm sorry.
it's just really,
Yeah.
really tricky to get people to go through it and then to retain those people. Even it's a beautiful home. They're paying them
Mhm.
well. You know, she tries to support them every way she can. So I think you guys have struck on the best idea I've heard so far.
Mm.
So
Well, thank you. And I think that, like, you know, Josh explained, it's the mentoring component. We're already, before they start the DODD training, they've already been given, they're going through at least, I think 5 or 6, 7, yeah. The 6th module is the clinical. The 5th module is the DODD. But before that, they also get a trauma-based care component. They get a behavior certification, you know, a response certification. They are getting robust, I think there are 16 elements to the ADLs, including a service dog, because that's kind of what happened with us recently. My son just got a place to service dog. And we worked with the agency. The agency sent someone that saw that we had a service dog, but the first day she came to work, she said, I'm allergic to dogs, and walked out in the middle of the shift. So, you know, all of these, even these finer things have been provided to them before they get into the DODD training. The other thing is they have had life experiences that are very different from, you know, the average graduate of Tri-C or, you know, people, you know, from, pardon my expression, but people of privilege, even if they are from a middle-class community in the Americas, they're people of privilege,
Mhm.
right?
100%.
And so, you know, and I think fundamentally, if people are better informed and better prepared and know that there's a real robust support structure, not one-off structure, like 2 members of the same family that are supporting them, then they can build confidence that they can do this for the long term, you know? So I think that, again, that is what I mean, I still have to put the caveat that this is a pilot training program, you know, and it's being done for the very first time here. But I feel that some of the very fundamental requirements to enter and stay the course in this type of caregiving, this group brings to the table, you know, the refugee group brings to the table. And they're also serving to improve the training. You know, as they are contributing feedback to Josh, I saw Josh just nodding his head, you know, as we're learning, we are designing this curriculum so that we're getting their feedback. And like, for example, in the first module, in addition to finding out what are their own learning styles, there's also a career assessment test that they're going through right on the first day. They did the first day. So right away, they're seeing these are the opportunities, you know, that I can pursue. While there may be still some movement, you will need at least 2 or 3 years providing care direct, and that makes you more viable to do something else, like an office-based job. And then here's the pathway that you can take, you know, to improve your own prospects in this industry. But it also helps, those assessments are going to help with the matching. when we come down to the clinical, and then as we're doing the matching, the AI, going through the ISPs, the IEPs, the ETRs, the psych reports, all of that is being fed, and then we're coming out with an output. So having that, going in armed with all of that, they are learning that this is a robust training program, so learning that gives them more confidence going in. It's not still an unknown, and then unexpected, like, I don't know what I got myself into here.
Right. Yeah.
What's the next one? Justin, your part?
Yeah, so now we'll talk, and I will try to be as succinct and non-jargony as possible. But the way that we've integrated technology into the entire approach of what we do really is about amplifying human capability, right? So enhancing what humans are capable of rather than, full-on replacement, right? And that's what I think a lot of people are maybe afraid that, AI is going to take the job, or, some kind of factory automation is going to take my job, or this, that, or the other thing. And the reality is work is going to change a lot. But the capability of the technology we have access to today allows humans to do more and to do it better than I think at any other point in time in history. And so that's kind of the fundamental nature of how we look to deploy technology into these kind of solutions. And, a lot of it is about how do we support our learners, our cohort of people who are training to become caregivers, to be able to do it better and to be able to have the information and the skill sets that they need in order to be successful when they come out on the other side of this. Because the big thing that struck me when we were going through, the entire feasibility study, and when we were looking at everything that's out there and all the rest of this, that, the other, is that there's a ton of things you can go online and learn by yourself, right? You can go online, you can watch these videos, you can spend 6 to 8 hours, I think, to go through the DODD videos, but they're kind of clunky, right? And I haven't perused them in their entirety, but the structure I don't think really looks like it's a very good flow. And it's really hard to get it out of there, right? Then you have to sign up and wait for a credential and do this, that, and the other, and it's not real easy to engage with, right? So, our thought process was, if we can use these technology platforms that we can put our hands on today that are relatively low cost and extremely powerful to deliver a hybrid type of training and education solution that leverages the best of what the technology can do, right? Immediate access anywhere to any kind of information, translating into almost anyone's native tongue, in a matter of minutes or weeks as opposed to months or years, allowing them to on-demand access a reference tool, anywhere they're at, whether they're on site at a clinical or in a classroom setting. And then having a human facilitator, right, that understands their community, understands, the particular challenges of that group, and understands what the work entails on the other side. So it's not like, hey, I'm just going to theory craft this thing and tell you what I think is going to happen when you go on site. I'm a PT. I work with people almost every day that have all kinds of different challenges, and it might not be exactly what you're going to face, but I work in direct care with humans, right? So the kind of blending of all of these things has allowed us to then come from an underlying philosophical point, right, of how we're going to deploy this and how we see it actually evolving. So, one of the first things that we talked about in depth was, what about privacy and what about security, right? And so the core platform provider that we work with is not a company that turns its users' data into profit, right? We do some work with Google, right, just for email and some of the simple tools, but the underlying technology is actually stored in data centers that are completely privately owned by a company called Zoho. Zoho is it's a gigantic technology company. They did almost $2 billion in revenue last year. They've got about 15,000 employees worldwide and have clients in 86, 87 countries around the world. They're privately owned. And as long as any of the three current founders are alive, they will always be privately owned, because their intention is not to build for short-term profits and short-term gain for shareholders, but to deliver technology solutions that make the world a better place and allow businesses to operate better, whether it's a small business or a giant enterprise. And their commitment to privacy and security for data and their users is commendable in a world where most technology companies, it feels like, are very quick to simply extract that information about what their users are doing. And while they might not say Justin Angelson, clicks on this mouse button, this many times, they certainly kick it over into this blob of what's called behavioral surplus, and then use it to play ads when my wife's watching something on Amazon for the standing desk I was looking at. And then it follows her around. So again, it was important to us to not align ourselves with the technology company as a primary underlying provider for the solution that's going to go ahead and do that. And because we're dealing with very, very personal, sensitive healthcare information, all at PHI, right? We needed to make sure that everything that we do is fully HIPAA and high-tech compliant, follows all the ISOC protocols for data security. So, I mean, every kind of certification from a security and privacy standpoint that you would require for a healthcare application is all present in spades in what we're doing. So that was important. And then, making sure that we have a secure method, right, and tool to allow the host families, right, so our clients, to actually share their information with us in a way that's not going to be subject to, look, a nation state's going to be able to do whatever it wants to get information, generally speaking. But in terms of security, it's very hard to get any better security than what we're using right now. Then the other piece that, and I think you had mentioned this, as being very valuable, right? Think about all the legwork it takes to find and then interview and then vet the providers that we bring into our home to work with our family, to work with our children, right? And it's so burdensome. It is a huge burden, and it's a responsibility. It's one that we have to undertake. And how do we use technology to do the heavy lifting there? And how do we use the technology to make that process faster, better, more efficient, more effective? And so we've also, as kind of a requirement to do this properly, we determined that we would have to build this matching algorithm and create the way that the algorithm could leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence to look at the data points about who our learners are that we're putting through our cohorts, right? So who are our caregivers? What are their strengths? What are the things they can improve on? What are the things they have a preference for, a past experience for, that would lead them to be a better potential match for any particular family? And then the flip side of that coin is that we had to do a similar kind of profiling on our candidate families for these clients, right? So we need to find out, what does the composition of your household look like? Is there a dog present? Are there cats, right? Are there special dietary considerations? What does the schedule look like? Would the potential caregiver that's needed in one family be needing to drive a lot or not drive at all, or whatever the case might be? But it's a lot of information that's very difficult for a human to parse out and to process in a short period of time and come up with a very accurate, assessment of what that looks like. But that's the kind of job that the machines do fantastically. They can take a look at all of this information in total and find connections and see patterns that are almost impossible for humans to see, and come around and say, okay, for Justin's family, these 3 caregivers are ideal. They are the top rated matches. And it can come back with an assessment rating. Right now, it's just basically a percentage confidence score, about what that looks like. But we could turn around and say, okay, this is a tier A match, a tier B, or whatever the terminology is we want to use. I'm not going to jump into that. But we can quickly then turn around and say, hey, from this most recent cohort, we have 3 that are an ideal match for your family. And here's why, right? So it's not just us saying, oh, well, it's the top 3. And, you have no idea what the reasoning or justification is. You turn around the other side and say, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? And being able to provide that as part of the overall process, I think, is important. I think that's a really cool thing. And to be able to use technology to build something that's going to impact a lot of people and make their lives better, I'd like to think that's the driver for most people that build things. I hope that it is. I think it is most of the time, right? But to be able to start to see how this has come together, and now, we worked on it for a long time, and now we started to launch it, and we're evolving it, and we're learning as we go from the people we're interacting with, the people that are considering having our caregivers come in during clinical, right? From our trainees and the learners themselves. We're all learning from each other. It's a multi-directional thing, and we're figuring out that the need is probably greater than we even have looked at from the statistics. It's only going to become greater because it's just the way the world's going. It's just the way the demographic trends are all showing that this is going to be neater. So we're going to need to find a solution, right? Because we can't just forget about people. And, a lot of the time, as you've experienced, you have an adult son, right? The likelihood, right, is that you will not outlive your adult son, right? So how is it we can then facilitate a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Continuity of
Continuity of care and their situations. And if we don't start looking to use the tools that we have now to build out a more capable and more confident and more skilled pipeline of caregivers, we're already hitting a bottleneck, right? In terms of,
and the systems, right? The systems
Yeah.
that support the caregivers and the individual clients. I just wanted to also add, again, going back to, the reticence with technology, even though we live and breathe the technology, is that even with the clinical piece, our intention is once we've identified the families that we're working with, we will pull them in and have them meet with the refugees at the Hope Center, have a meet and greet. So always keeping that personal element, the in-person communication piece, because if they start with that, then day one, as they progress through some of the more difficult experiences, there's going to be a sense that, yes, I want to keep going. I want to keep going with this. And so, Josh's contribution with that is incredible. It's like really valuable. And I don't know how we're going to clone Josh, but he's already identifying some refugees that are rising to the top with the facilitation. And so again, we're thinking about all those pieces as a team. And like Josh said, learning as we go, and keeping it kind of a malleable process, which then we know we are expecting. As we created this, we knew this was only the first iteration. We're going to have to go through a couple more iterations and keep it flexible so that it can keep evolving with the community, both the communities, the caregivers, and the clients that we'll be serving.
Yeah.
So that's it. We do have the room until 11:30, and it's 11:20. I just wanted to do a time check with everyone. I'm sorry. I just want to give you the opportunity. We were moving into Q&A, I think, after this, right?
Yeah, I think
I just have one other quick thing that I wanted to touch on relative to robotics, because that's something that, Vitaly, you had mentioned that at the outset. And as part of the feasibility study, I went through and did a very deep dive as to what is the state of assistive robotic technology as it exists in the world today. And as it turns out, it's much farther along than I had even anticipated. And I'm pretty plugged into this stuff, but again, more on the hardware side or the software side than the hardware side, right? And I don't know if you've seen, any of the announcements from the companies that are building humanoid robotics, but by the end of this year, we're going to have a humanoid robot that's capable of autonomously learning and doing tasks that it's never been presented for, available to put inside of people's home. I've seen them, sort groceries successfully. They've never seen an apple. They never saw a banana, a carton of milk, whatever, put it away and do things like that. And, the reality is that by incorporating a machine that's not going to throw out its back, right? A machine that's not going to have a torn muscle or potentially have a fall that's going to hurt someone, that is operating at a level of precision that a human simply can't manage, to do literally the heavy lifting, right? Or some of the transport, or even some of the, additional monitoring type solutions, right? So if you have a situation where, you need, more continuous monitoring, and a lot of the time that might be out of reach for a lot of people to have 24/7 care from a financial point of view, right? With waivers notwithstanding, I mean, it's not cheap. But by incorporating some of these advanced robotic solutions, again, taking privacy and security and safety into account first and foremost, you can then enhance the ability for people that go through a cohort where they're exposed to that learning and training to be able to utilize those tools to deliver more effective care. And that's pretty exciting. I wasn't a big robot guy until I thought about this. And then I'm like, well, maybe I can get these companies to donate or let us have a
And-
cheap robot to buy and start to test and experiment to see what that might look like in practical application. But that's an exciting
Yeah,
piece.
and just sorry to interrupt, but just
no,
going back to our feasibility study, we, which was done like in 2023, we also found at that time that there were some robots available for $15,000, which, my son uses a power chair that's $50,000. So, if you think about it, robots are here. They're here. We just have to engage them. And our goal was to have the robots handle the standardized tasks of caregiving, whereas the humans, whether it's a family member or a refugee or another caregiver, handle the more, emotional piece of it, and the social piece of it. Although the robots are still now even helping with the social piece, but that was our vision, to integrate robotics into our triadic care model as well.
It's here. The genie's out of the bottle. We can't.
Lori has a question, so let's get to that because we're getting close to the and go ahead.
It wasn't a question exactly, as you were saying, as you're training these people and some people are rising to the top, not only do we need caregivers, but I can speak specifically to those of us that are getting older, like house managers, someone so that, so Nate's 30, Wayne and I have gone away once for 2 days together. We travel independently, with friends, but together we don't travel without him because we don't have caregivers. And if we go to Hawaii and two of our caregivers, for whatever reason, have something come up, we are also going to need people that can pull in other caregivers or have access or just understand they're the first line of contact when somebody's kid gets sick and they can't show up for a shift or whatever might happen. So that's another thing that we're going to, that like with the independent model, what I was hoping is I would get a group of independents and some would kind of rise to that level where we start saying, okay, would you like to be kind of a higher level caregiver and be the house manager, if you're familiar with that concept?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Josh, do you need to add anything more? Seemed like you were about ready to make a comment, was it?
No, the only thing that I would add is that I do think this population is unique in that, like, the expectations of work and what their culture brings in terms of taking care of people is different than what I've run to working in healthcare for over a decade. So a lot of people, if presented, I mean, there are multiple people now who they come to the class for 6 hours each week, but they're working a third shift job and another second shift job and taking care of and doing this other thing. So I do think there's an element of like, yes, there is an expectation that I think of all the people in the class, I think there was one person who's like, no, I wasn't thinking about this as a full-time thing. Like, I think everyone else was like, I was thinking about this as a full-time job. And just like the emphasis on like community care or talking about how caregiving looked for them and their family. It was very rarely like, I have to hire someone in, I pay them, they do this. It's like, no, like our whole community does different things to chip in. To care well for the people who need a little extra help, whether it's in our family or in our community. So I think it's a very good match population wise for people who've been through some very difficult situations themselves, matching with the work that they they like to do, and coming from a culture that values caring well for people. Love the States, love working in healthcare, but there are just some inherent conflicts of interest in how we do it. So I think, yeah, I'm really interested to hear about the community side that you guys have going on, and just the opportunities that would have in terms of like ongoing support for multiple caregivers, working at the same place, or having like levels, because there's some people who I'm joking, I'm like, you could teach the first aid thing because you've been doing this for 20 years.
You're a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
you're literally a physician. So
literally a doctor.
yeah. So I do think, yeah, I think it's a great fit, not just in terms of the training, which the training is good on the material, but it's not great on the, is this a good fit for you, or will you actually like doing this? Or what does this actually look like when you walk into someone's home? But I think this population is very good for all of that. All of that. So once we get through the training piece, I think the match in terms of burnout or in terms of turnover or those kind of things, once these people land in a spot that's solid, like I see these being, we're going to stick around for a while type of situation.
What you mean is it's mostly theoretical until they get to the clinical piece, right? I mean, when you say that the training is not good in terms of, you know.
Oh, I just mean like the training through the DODD, the online trainings, those things, like
You're not
the
referring to
information,
our training.
the information is great. No. Our training.
Hard on it, right?
Yeah. No. Just some of the online training or just some of the
Yeah.
theoretical.
Yeah.
For us, every single class we talk about whatever the theory is, and then we're literally practicing it. So like we're lifting people to transfer, we're doing CPR, we're all of those things. So yeah, it's the theme for class is give extra time, give extra space, have people to have the opportunity to teach each other, and then overtrain. Like overtrain. We want you to go somewhere and feel like, oh my goodness, this is easy. Why did I spend so much time learning? Like this is so much easier than class. Because I feel like just with some of the extra language or cultural or just the nerves of a new job, I want everyone to feel so equipped that the job part feels easy.
Well said, Josh. Well said. He's the
To
youngest.
say he just does facilitation is maybe a little, I mean,
Okay.
when he says I facilitate these trainings, I mean, there's a lot more that Josh has done and brings to the table for sure.
Thank you.
I hope this was informative.
It was.
for
It's
you, Laurie.
exciting. I
And we
think
forgot
it's-
to mention that we were recording the session. I
Okay.
hope that's okay.
It's fine with
We
me.
do plan to put it on our website with some
Okay.
edits, because it's, it takes a lot to deliver an information session, and we want to get it broadcasted as much as we can. And for a lot of our families, they were signed up, but they're not here.
Yeah.
So for them to have the ability to go and watch in bits and pieces and then put it all together, it's very critical. So I hope that's okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
I understand. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. So thank you, Josh and Justin, for being here, and Debbie. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's
Yes,
Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Mother's
Jackie.